Everybody, welcome. My name is Trevor Grimes, and this is the Content Crowd. The Content Crowd is a podcast where we talk about the real side of content creation and how to create content that actually resonates with an audience. I'm here today with Jessica Tait, who is the VP of Operations at With, which is a creative firm. I was told not to say agency, so I'm trying to make sure that I say it correctly. You told me right before, and I've already forgotten
Yeah,
it. But
we say we're a strategic and creative firm, and
yes,
it's really based on how we work because we really try to lead with strategy anytime we're doing anything. I'll talk a lot about that.
yeah, which I totally get. I think like there's a little bit there can be that sometimes there can be a stigma around the word agency. So I think a lot of times we try to be a little bit more meaningful and thoughtful about how we talk about where we work. So but thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here.
We have, for people who don't know, me and you have been friends since like middle school. So and all along those times you've been a huge creative inspiration for me. And I would say that uh the things that you've done have modeled a lot of the paths that I've taken in life as well. So,
Well,
um,
right back at you. I was just thinking about like literally we rode the school bus together. But I also remember being very jealous of when you did an illustration in our elementary school yearbook. And I was like, I want to be in yearbook and I want to do art too.
yeah,
So you've been
that's
a long time inspiration for me as well.
okay. Well, that's super funny because I was going to say when we were in college and I sort of went down a path that I didn't like. I was seeing what you were doing and I was like, what she's doing is like possible for me to do
Yeah.
too. So it like made
Yeah.
it so okay, cool. Well, I didn't know there was that. I kind of felt like I've always just been like you know, not in your shadow, but I've just been like, oh, like I want to be as cool as Jessica one day.
It is really cool to like have a peer in this way. I just feel like we've had similar tracks along the way, and it's been cool to root each other on too in each of our endeavors.
Yeah, I think reading through like the questions that I sent over to learn more, about you, what things I didn't know. Like I knew that you had started your career in graphic design, which is also how I did, and a lot of people don't even know that that's what my degree in. So I mention it sometimes, and people are like surprised because it's not something that like I necessarily do or go by anymore, but it was definitely like a path. And we can get into that. I want to make sure that you have a chance to introduce
Yeah.
yourself. So I didn't really give you the time. So let's go ahead and talk about, who you are and your title and your place of work and kind of what that entails.
Yeah, so I am over business operations VP at With Agency or with just on its own. We did a random repositioning and realized that agency was kind of hurting us. It gave, to what you were mentioning before, it gave an impression that we worked a certain way. And that is actually unique to my role as well. I really care about the creative process. And like you said, I've started in graphic design, became an art director and was that for many, many years. And then I'd say about 5 years ago, I started thinking about creative operations and being on the opposite side of that. I was like, man, this has got to be, there's got to be a better way. I can't just be making aimless creative that like doesn't have value or doesn't have purpose. And then you're just, taking the metaphorical spaghetti and seeing what sticks. Like, I want to know that something is going to stick and not waste time, which really puts me in that operative mindset. So I'm constantly thinking about like how do we provide our team better tools, better processes, and better scopes so that they can create well and help us be profitable too. So
Yeah, yeah. I think like you starting out like on the creative side, it's probably been like a huge
yeah,
advantage, right? Because like I know when I was doing like graphic design professionally, the part that I hated the most was like just being handed like a doc or a piece of paper and being told to like make it look nice. And like it not it's not always like this, but a lot of times as a designer, you're kind of just expected to like make it look nice, but like the words, like it doesn't matter what the words say, or it doesn't matter if we're gonna print like a full URL on this poster instead of using like cute, like those kind of things. Or if you try to bring that up, it's kind of like you don't almost like you don't have the right to think about that. So that was sort of my career trajectory, was like, okay, I want to have the like ability to say like, these words could be better, they could be more written for the target audience. Like we could talk more about what the people care about. And I worked for a university, so a lot of times it was a dean who was not always disconnected, but maybe slightly removed from like the normal day to day of a
Mm.
student. And if you're wanting a student to come to your like free lecture or like something extracurricular, like you have to be able to like talk to them in that way. And sometimes it's yeah, you have to know how to do that. So that was sort of my thinking. And that was like, if I knew like how to write the words that people wanted to, that made people like interested, that's what, I could make those kind of
Right.
suggestions. So do you feel like when you were a graphic designer, you were like, you had like time crunch, or you felt like you didn't have the ability to make things like look the way they needed to, or maybe you were just creating something because it looked good. Maybe it didn't have the conversion aspect in that
Right.
as
Yeah.
well.
I think there was a time where I was being told to create something and then being told multiple times to recreate it. And I was like, it sounds like this is a you problem. Like you're giving me direction that's not resonating. So maybe let's back up. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on. And then I realized that I had a really good knack for seeing what is going to hit that audience. So I'm with you. Like I look at those times and realized that while I was working with leadership or people, we were a really small agency, so like I'm working alongside the co-founders to make this happen, but I was also working directly with our clients too, where they are marketers but they weren't thinking about content that resonates. And at that time
Mm-hmm.
frame too, like content marketing, they would say like content is king, which I don't think that's gone away, but
Yeah.
it felt very new and fresh at that time. And I was like, okay, well, let's think about where this is going to go, what message is going to resonate, and not just make things to make things. And so, yeah, I totally
Yeah.
get that. And to the time crunch aspect too, I'm just like, do you realize how many hours I've spent I don't know if you use Harvest as a tool. That's our time tracking tool.
Have in the
Yeah.
past. Yeah.
And, most creatives are like, I don't want to track my time. For me, I'm like, I love data. I need to know that. So I was like that as a younger designer too. I liked being able to say, oh, that took me 4 hours to make. Great. So if I have to redo this later, it might take me 2 hours to do instead. Like, and seeing my own optimization. And it was funny that the
Yeah.
leaders recognized that in me and was like, maybe you need to be thinking about creative operations a bit more. So yeah, I think that's where I was
Yeah.
learning on my own, realizing that there were problems to be solved.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because there's 2 points to that. The second point you made that's kind of funny to think about is like you're talking about realizing how much something takes you to create. And I feel like, and maybe you didn't get this, but I feel like myself going through like art school or like going through like design, it was like if you were going to tell somebody you were going to make like a template of something to make your design go by faster the next time, they would be like,
Yeah,
no way. Like if you don't draw 100 thumbnails first, like what was it even like? Why did you even
yeah,
take the time? Like why are you even here? And so I think that's a hard shift from if you're a graphic designer or you're a creative, like whatever, and you're used to having sort of that space, you're sitting in a class for 3 hours to get through just ideation of this. And then you're in the real world. If you didn't go straight to being like a freelance designer or opening your own like t-shirt shop or
mhm,
something like that, then now you've got that time crunch, you've got that time estimate, and it's like maybe you've got 3 hours to do it, and you're like, man, I'm used to spending 3 hours just drawing out thumbnails and like ideas for this, and now I have to have it
yeah,
completely done. And so I think like that's an interesting aspect that maybe needs to be maybe not addressed, but it needs to be like normalized, and like it's okay if you make like a template for something to help you do something quicker
yeah,
next time, because you're only helping yourself and you're only helping the person who is paying for that, whether it's your client and then your employer, or just your employer, or you if you're freelance. If you can create something a little bit quicker, like you're only helping the people who are paying for it. And at some point you have to sort of not like let your artistic integrity go away, but you have to find a way to put providing value for somebody kind
yeah,
of first. And when you can provide value to somebody first, then it sort of gives you the like the leeway, or the the opportunity to create something that's more aligned with maybe what you would like to
agreed,
create.
agreed.
um and so
To think about a little bit,
yeah,
I
and
was gonna
then
say, I think early in my career, I had such direct, contact and collaboration with the founders of the agency. True entrepreneurs in the space who did wanna do an agency different, and that's core to the With brand, is that we wanted to be seen as someone that you work with, not for, or
Yeah.
to, we think about that preposition that fits in there, that fits well. And like with, it's just a part of our ethos. And
Yeah.
because I got that exposure so early and I already had an entrepreneurial itch, I was thinking like that. And I to your point about creatives, it's like you don't realize it until it's your own business. And I think that
Mm,
when I had that close association with the people that are running the business, they would explain these things of like, oh yeah, like we do care about your time, and this is why. And yeah, I just feel really lucky to be in the position that I was in to get that really quickly, because it does take a lot of creatives to go freelance and figure that out the hard way, or even
yeah.
like not care about it as much and have to pull in other resources. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, or even just like doing stuff on the side, and you're like, man, if I have a full time job and then I go to a meeting with a client that's an hour, and then I'm going to go do 4 more hours
Yeah,
of work, could I make this meeting templatized and do almost all the work on the
exactly.
call? So I have a lot, like we'll do it together, and I mean, like you said, like it's they feel like a partnership. You feel like you're doing it with
Mhm.
them and not like pitching something. We always say in our like meetings, like we want to play doubles tennis, not one
Right.
on one tennis. Like we want to do it with you. We're not going to lob something over and wait for you to, wait for the ball to
I
come
like
back
that
over.
analogy. That really
Um,
resonates with me too.
yeah, it seems to have worked because it's I don't know who coined it. Maybe our operations person has coined it, but I just remember like it's been reused. We've all been used it. We've kind of all like aligned with like, yeah, like doubles tennis makes
Yeah.
sense. Do you feel like there is a like a secret, or maybe not a secret, but like how have you sort of you've came from being the creative who can like take all the time to do something to now you're over creatives to make sure that they have what they need and they can do it in the time. How is there like a, I don't know, like a secret formula or something that you've kind of figured out that works, how you can sort of like wrangle in creatives and get them to like just sort of get it done and while providing value without it feeling like rushed
Yeah.
or you know
Um,
time
I
crunched?
would say, I really live by like great work takes the time that it takes. So while I
Yeah.
do care about people time tracking, it's not for me to police. It's for me to gather data.
Yeah.
And so with years over years of doing the same type of work, I mean, we are very much in the branding space. We are doing campaigns. Like we're thinking about marketing holistically. We have some things that are also repeatable. So if you're repeating the same type of work over and over, you're seeing, okay, well, when the team works on a roadmap, like a communication strategy, it's going to take someone about 20 hours cumulatively with the headcount that's on it. If two people are working on it, 10 hours apiece. And so when you plan for that, you can make better plans and better project management with that in mind. And so we now have like a senior project lead on our team who came as a project manager. And I've been able to work with her over the past 3, 4 years now. And so she's got the knack for it and knows how to build a good project plan that allows the team to do great work. I do feel
Yeah.
like sometimes people get pulled in as I like really trusting a project manager here, and project management being informed by data is so key. But
Hmm.
sometimes other agencies will have a project manager and they're like, yeah, so can you just create a logo by tomorrow? Like, is that possible? And you're like, no. Like,
Yeah.
and I actually like to you when you brought up in college, creatives do take a lot of time doing sketches and comps and then putting together more I don't know. There's people call it different things, but like foundational comps and presenting
Yeah.
those to clients. And I liked that process. I want to give that time if that's what it takes, but also as you get more
Yeah.
senior, you do that a little less. Like you kind of know what works and you don't have to do as many early thumbnails and expansive compositions. Like you could probably do a few comps and be like, yeah, let's pitch this to the client and see what they think. As long as it's on strategy, right? So we'll save that time
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I love how you brought the project manager side of that into this because, like, what I've learned, like, when I started working going from in-house to working for an agency is like having a good project manager is like it's
Yeah.
like gold. Like that makes your that could be like the difference between you loving your job and like
Yeah.
absolutely hating your job. And I have to say, the project manager that I work with, I've been working with for years, and she's amazing. So um, that's always good to have. How do you what do you have a piece of advice you give to like maybe somebody who's like just starting out in project management or sort of in one of these roles where you're like, because I know there's on my side, I feel like there used to be like a dynamic of me being like afraid to like ask for
Mm.
things or being afraid to be like, can you respond to this? Like, I don't want to respond to this email or how should I respond to this? And it's kind of like, in some places, this the project managers, they take over that and they sort of handle those things for you. So I can imagine on the other side, you've got somebody who's probably very organized and like, structurally thinking, who's a project manager or somebody who's in operations. How do you sort of combine both of those two different like personalities and make something that
Yeah.
works?
Assuming that there isn't already established processes that we're like, oh yeah, when we do this, when we do a logo project, here's your project plan, assuming you don't have
Yeah.
that, I think it is just listening to your team, getting aligned with them. Start with an assumption that you feel really good about and then presenting that to the team and be like, does this feel fair? Does this feel right? Like the client will be happy with this, I know, but is this good for you as a creative team working on this? And is there any adjustments you want to see? Especially starting new, I think it's important to go back to the teams and go back to the people that are experienced and learn from them. I like being vulnerable in that way and saying like I do come in with experience, I've worked in this place and did these sorts of things, but I also know that this is a different place and a different team and we're all humans with our own past experience too. So how do you all want to work together as a project team and be complementary to that for what the client's expecting too?
That's very helpful. And I like that you mentioned, you believe that the good things just take the time that they take. How do you sort of work that conversation in with like a
Yeah,
client that this is just one of those, like it may cost more because it takes good things just take the
right.
time that they take. So how do you
Yeah, that's
work
a good
that in?
question. So, in the scoping process, we do tend to ask like what their preferred timing is, and if they have any
Yeah.
milestones that they want to hit. And they might be like, "Oh, I have like a leadership meeting in 2 weeks, and I really want to show them something that I feel good about." Then I'm like, "Okay, great. Like,
Yeah.
we have 2 weeks to work with. I know that it takes 20 hours to get to a good logo comp, and that's what you want to present to your leadership. So, how do we program that 20 hours and how do we work less like priority work around that, because of course we're not just working on one thing, we have a few things going on, everybody's got different
Yeah.
responsibilities, but it is like being flexible. We also have a very transparent like project management system, so agencies have all
Mhm.
sorts of things. We choose monday.com. I have enjoyed working with monday.com and it's been awesome, but every project plan is built and it actually gives us people's capacity. So I can look at who we want to put on that project. And if I know something has to get done in 2 weeks, then I source it or resource it properly too. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So definitely like it's super important. Like if you don't have those sort of templates or that process plan like already built out, like that might be like the first thing you should start really like thinking. It's like gathering the data of how long it might take, or at least
Mhm.
estimates, and kind of like putting it all together, running through that first project and saying like, hey, this take a little bit longer and this doesn't quite
Yeah.
take as long, and kind of like you said, resourcing and readjusting. And that's sort of like that'd be like the biggest thing if you were a project manager coming into something and having to wrangle all of these people who are kind of like all over
Mhm.
the place. Is like, have you found it? I know you said you use Monday. We like to
Yeah.
use ClickUp, but everybody has their own that they prefer. Do you feel like getting the buy-in to use those has been hard? Like if you guys have a new team member, like
Yeah.
is it seems like project management tools like that are kind of like ubiquitous now, but I think there's always a little bit of like it only works if
That's
everybody
right.
uses
That's
it.
right.
And yeah,
Um, we have a pretty, I'm gonna say, like, tenured team. So,
yeah,
when we onboard, usually it helps that everyone else is already adopted. When we first got
yeah,
monday.com, gosh, it was actually 2019, which thank God, because we had to go work virtually in 2020, and our project management before was shared Excel sheets. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
And so we were in a good place having Monday.com set up, and everyone was like, thank goodness we have this, because there's no way we would have been able to just work like this over email, you know? So yeah, there was like a forced adoption in some ways. But with
Yeah.
new folks coming in, I think they just see how well it works and they're like, okay, if everyone else believes in this, then I know it'll work for me too. And also as we onboard, I take it upon myself to like meet with people individually and be like, does this make sense? And is there what would be your expected behavior? And sometimes I get some really good insights to actually tinker and improve our system as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like using those opportunities.
So you're actually like going in and like you're the person creating all of the very nice like flows and
Yep,
processes within
yep.
Monday. Okay, that's awesome. That's a really hard thing to do because I've used Monday before when I worked at JSU. Like we were using some kind of like free thing that was basically like an Excel spreadsheet. But then I moved to Monday and it was like creating the flow and making it work is like very confusing because like which one do I choose and how do I make it work? And then when I worked for another company after that, I used Reich. I don't know if you
I'm
ever heard of
familiar.
Reich
Yeah.
before. Use that, and it was just by myself, and it's kind of like it's hard to adhere when you're just trying to do it all yourself. So being able to make it definitely makes a big difference if you have nice like templates or frameworks or processes, built out in that, and where it makes it like super
I do
easy to
try and make
adapt.
it where
And
it feels intuitive. Like the user experience needs to
yeah,
be just as good in those working spaces as it does for your client work. Like we're all human. And so if we want people to behave or react or, click through and do certain actions, like you have to think about that user experience. So I do leave it open for our internal process too to change and adapt if they need to. Now,
yeah,
is our system perfect? No. I would really love putting this out there, like a really expert Monday.com engineer to come and like be my right hand person. So I can be like,
yeah,
I want to do this. Can you help me do this? I haven't made that investment just yet, but putting it out
yeah.
there that maybe that'll happen soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be
Yeah.
worth it. I know we had something similar help us with us with ClickUp and everything to get that where it is. But things are
Yeah.
always changing, and it definitely helps. Our project manager makes a like a tutorial every Friday and to like help somebody like how to track like you're out of office. So it's like nice to go back to it, so you don't have to ask them how to track like you're out of office or how to like you got a due date
Yep.
that needs to be changed or how to link up things you're working on so everybody can see it or how to let people know if you're behind or something's blocked. Like all those kind of things are very nice like things to have. And then you just have a nice like repository in Slack that you can like search and be like, oh yeah, how do I track out of office because I need to do that again and I've already
Yeah.
forgotten. I don't remember where it is. So it's nice to have those
Uh-huh.
kind of things. But I don't want to talk so much about building out processes
Get me going. I'll
in
geek
project
out.
visuals. Yeah. Well, maybe well, I mean, I want to. I want to keep bring it back to you and just talk about
Yeah.
your experience and like because you're recently
Yes.
promoted. Is
Yes.
that correct? So, can you talk about what was the trajectory like? Like, I don't know if some people want to climb the ladder, and some people are happy where they are. But some people also fall into roles and that were unexpected. And so, I'd love to know like what does that look like
Yeah.
for you?
So I've been director of operations for the past 3 years at With, and under that, I was handling a lot of exactly what we've been talking about: tools, processes, how we do things, and I was less involved with, I mean, if I look at it as agency operations and business operations, I was looking at the agency operations, like what the day to day was for our teams. And that has gotten in a really good place. And it's kind of time for the next generation to carry or pass the baton, carry the torch, whatever the saying is. And now I'm going to take that same skill set that I've built and turn it over to our business operations. So I'm thinking about profitability a whole lot more than I was before. I'm also thinking about how the agency makes certain financial decisions based on the way the market is and stuff, like things like that. And then operationalizing exactly that. We just recently launched an advisory practice, which is very new for us. We're starting with a core of 3 practice leads, and this advisory practice is a way for us to work with visionary marketers out in the world who need a partner that can really see eye to eye with them and know where they're at. We do a lot of work with Coca-Cola and AT&T, and like our team is amazing and our strategists are awesome, but it's kind of nice to know that you're talking to someone who's like sat in your seat before. And so
Mm,
for us, when
yeah.
we were thinking about this idea and concepting it, we saw the value in it, but then we were like, how do we make this real? Like, how do we bring on 3 people? And so I had to think about it behind the scenes of like, okay, financially, this is how these projects will work out. And we set up a really good model that I feel confident in. And it's something that can scale too, is something I'm always thinking about. So, yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. You said, and maybe these are the same roles, but you said you started thinking about agency operations versus like business
Hmm.
operations. And I'm assuming by agency operations, you're talking more about like the project management part that we kind of were
Right.
just talking about, and business is more about scaling. Can we hire 3 new people to make this initiative
Yeah,
work and
I'm
those
in
kind of
QuickBooks
things?
and I'm thinking about deferred revenue. So it's a different model.
Okay. Wow. All right. I'm not quite the QuickBooks. I'm not
Yeah.
that level yet. So
I
you've
still feel
you've
very
you
novice in
know,
QuickBooks, and thankfully we have a CFO that really owns that space, but I can get in
yeah.
there and work my way around.
Yeah. And I mean, what was the like? Because I'm like hearing this, and this is so like interesting, just because again, like to think that like you started out as a
Mhm.
graphic designer, like those don't always necessarily transfer. Like those skills and the kind of people who are graphic designers don't always transfer to the person who's in QuickBooks and talking about
Yeah.
spreadsheets and profitability and all these things. And do you feel like as you were more immersed into like the agency side of things and you were seeing that it just became like interesting to know
Yeah.
about versus like I mean were you always passionate about numbers and data the way you are
So
now?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, in some ways. In high school, I was on math team, so I definitely have that side of my brain.
Yeah.
And then if I'm drawing the through line from there into my career, I did start noticing the data and like how my time spent at work and how much money I'm bringing to the agency and how much money like
Yeah.
were what I want as I mean, personally. And I think a lot of people fantasize about like, oh, yeah, I'm going to open up a bookstore with a flower shop and a coffee shop and that sort of thing. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. Here in my 30s, what am I
Yeah.
going to be when I grow up? But if I'm going to romanticize about those things, I actually want to just use where I'm at today and learn a lot more about like how businesses run. It's so funny because even on my very first day at with because I've actually been here for 10 years. This is also rare,
Oh wow.
is that I started at with right out of college as a graphic designer. And part of the reason why
Mhm.
I've been able to stay is because as I matured, so did the agency. So it was kind of like we
Yeah.
had parallel paths. And I, like I mentioned before, I got really into working with the co founders. But on my very first day, Jamie asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "I don't know. Maybe I'll have an agency one day." And he was like,
Yeah.
"Really? Okay." And it was nice foreshadowing into where I'm at now. Well, while I don't have equity in with, I am someone that cares deeply about the success of the company and the success of the people that work here. So that's where got me where I am today.
Do you still want to start an agency?
I don't know. I'm really happy with where I'm at, and um,
Yeah.
there might be a day where I adopt with, who knows, or I start
Yeah.
something new, or I start my coffee shop that also sells flowers, that also sells books. Who knows?
Yeah, well, let me know on the end because I definitely want a like co-working coffee shop that also has like a pet daycare, so I
Yeah,
can go like somewhere and let my
let's make
dog
that
run around
happen.
outside while I can. Yeah, I think that would be. I think that would be pretty cool. Except the only thing would be like, could I work and also confidently let my dog run around? But I guess if it's like a daycare
Yeah,
type
there's
thing, it
just
kind of like,
wild
yeah,
free roam children, so you can have free roam dogs. That's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I feel the same way about you in a lot of ways, especially because you're like maybe I'll start my own agency because that was kind of like when I started freelancing full time in 2023. That was like my first thought, and maybe I did it for like 6 months and was talking to my friend and now boss, the owner of Scrappy ABM. I was like, I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to start an agency. I started maybe like a micro type agency with me, and I just sort of outsource a
Mhm.
few things. But like, I've been watching what you have been doing, and it looks exhausting. And I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough, but also like I just don't think I'm ready to be that dedicated. Not dedicated, but you've got to like put in 100 hours a week, and that's what he had been doing. So I just work for you instead, and so that kind of seemed to have worked out pretty nicely because
Yeah.
same, I'm very passionate about what we do at Scrappy ABM, and um, learning more from you about with like it sounds like we have a lot of very parallel thinking in how we want to approach client work and approach the value that we bring.
Mhm.
So I'm really interested in hearing about the sort of new like offering you're talking about, like the strategic advisory part of that, and I just kind of want to lead that into like, is there a campaign that you've like worked on in the past that you felt like is primed you for this sort of like offering?
Hmm. Well, I'm trying to think because there have been some recent stuff that I'm like, how much can I share from a confidentiality
Right.
standpoint?
Yeah.
But I will say that there have been a few projects with some of our premier clients where we are deep in the strategy. And while our team is really good at creating communication strategies, creative strategies, how do we approach video? How do we put together this brand narrative, whatever it may be, we're really good at those things. But then we started finding our way into projects that required a level of insight and intake that is so deep that it it helps to have people that have been on the other side of that to
Yeah.
like go and help our clients in the way that we want to by being a true partner to them and an extension of their team. And
Hmm.
we started noticing a gap when you are working for Coca-Cola, right? Like they are having a level of marketing data that is so beyond like the day-to-day like
Hmm.
content creation that we do. And so we had to bring in extra resources. Like we looked at that and we were like, we need someone who thinks a certain way. Thankfully, our network is so crazy. Like the amount of people that we're able to connect with because we're based here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We just are so well connected. We were able to find someone who was excellent who could come in and provide that extra support in a way that our in-house team like, if they were to do it, it would have been their whole job for, like,
Yeah.
3 months, you know? And, that's where the advisory practice really spawned from, was knowing that we needed people who had been in that particular. I like saying in that seat because it's
Yeah.
like when you're working with the VP of brand and marketing of Sprite. We have not worked with that person, but say we did. Um, I want someone that's also been a VP of brand and marketing at a CPG brand that can actually come in and help in that way. So,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. That is I think that's really valuable. Yeah, because there's just, are you guys like you said you work with Coke, are you locked into working with just like CPG brands, or do you guys have, and that's sort of what spawned the advisory, was like we need people who are like, we don't typically work with this type of brand, so by opening up this sort of avenue we can bring people in and sort
yeah.
of tack that on to our some of our strategic like specialty.
Yeah, I would say that we are open to all different industries. And while we love working with Coke being based here in Atlanta, we work with a lot of tech companies, we work with utility. Um, yeah, and we're just kind of in a lot of different spaces, and we actually like that part of our work because we get to cross pollinate the knowledge that we learn from working in one industry and carry that over into another.
Yeah.
um, Not to harp on this too much, but it also reinforces our processes too, that like they are transferable. Like
Yeah.
they can actually go from one industry to another, and that is helpful for scale. But
Yeah.
opinion. Um,
No, no, no.
yeah, I was gonna
Harp on
say
that as much
that.
as, yeah, we love saying,
You can go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, it cut out a little bit. Sorry, I was just saying we like it's at least at Scrappy ABM. Like we love like saying we build processes that are repeatable and scalable, and I think that's what you sort of just emphasize the importance of that because like yeah, like maybe not the exact specific strategy is going to work for Coke the same way that it would work for like a SaaS
Mhm.
company, but the framework or the process or the just the outline of that can transfer, and you sort of adapt it to what makes sense for that audience's for their prospects or whoever they're talking to. And it's not, you're not having to reinvent the wheel and do spaghetti
Yeah,
marketing.
exactly. I mean, I think it's getting to the root of like we all have human problems to solve. It's not like just a CB, like there are things that are CBG specific problems, but when it comes to brand and marketing, like you're getting to real humans. So how can you get
Yeah.
there faster and be really wise about that? So I like being across different industries.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that you said like at the end we're dealing like with human problems, and I don't want to plug myself, but I will. I
Please
was
do.
on another podcast this week that'll be out in a few weeks, the account based beverages podcast. But that was one thing that I brought up was like, just simple as writing emails. People forget that there's like a person on the other side of that. Like it's not just a number that you're trying to get on a phone call with sales. Like it's a real person with human problems, and sometimes you just have to like remember to talk to them in that way or present the offer in that way where it's like there's a real person there, and we have to talk. We forget sometimes that we're talking to humans who breathe and walk and do the same things
Exactly.
we do. Like um so when it comes to like content and creating content or advising content strategies, like what's like the one hill that you'll die on when it comes to that?
Hmm. Well, I'm trying to think. You know, you talk about like you are talking to real humans, right? And so every
Yeah.
time you work with someone, you are building trust. So in like a working relationship, you're building trust. I also think content is a way to build trust. It's a way to build trust with your
Yeah.
audience, and you don't want to look at your audience as though they aren't like intelligent. I feel like sometimes like people are making things assuming their audience is dumb, and it's like you need to actually meet them where they're at for sure, but like respect their intelligence, respect their time. Like i I'm not a huge fan of people just blasting anything and everything. um I really want to be thoughtful about that, and be in tune with their emotional reality. Like, I mean, we
Yeah.
all are human, and you always hear about those agencies and companies that put content out there that are just so out of touch that you're like, why you put so much effort into that and you have no
Yeah.
sensibility to like what's going on in the world right now. And I think that like
Yeah.
since there's so much content going out in the world, just put out things that are actually valuable. Like that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking like the first thing that came to my mind, and maybe it was because you've been talking about Coke, but like that like Pepsi ad that came out a few years ago, I remember that being like met with a lot of like backlash because it was like oversimplifying and going back to like you said, like it's a human problem, and I think like it was oversimplifying the human problem that like a bunch of celebrities drinking Pepsi was going to
Right,
solve like all the world's
right.
issues, right? So what kind of like you know let's say like you've got a client who's bringing up that kind of thing, and like that's kind of the idea that they're going to have that might be met with some backlash. How do you go about steering them in the right direction, but also how do you balance some of the um, like, some people, you're always going to have some like haters out there. So how do you sort of balance like how risky do you want to be with this versus how like precise and exact do we need to be with this sort of
Yeah,
messaging?
I think like in early discovery and early strategy building, we do get an assessment of risk. Like what are you looking to get out of this? What is the ultimate outcome? I don't know that we've ever been a part of a project that they were like, I want to go out there and have a huge splash, and I don't care if there is like a backfire of impact from it. Like, I think everyone comes in and they're like, I want the outcome of this to be that we have exceeded the engagement rates that we had before. And we look at previous data, we pull in some insights, and then that informs the way we move forward creatively. So that point of like earning trust, it's like we're going to flag if it feels like something that feels disingenuous and could cause their audience to have mistrust. Um,
Mm,
and we're extra critical on ourselves too if that's a sensitivity. I mean, especially with our healthcare clients. When we've worked with healthcare in the past, we have to be so sensitive to like what's going on in the world. And you know, even your headlines could be taken the wrong way. So taking that extra step
yeah.
to do your own filter, run it by an internal team to be like, how does this resonate with you? Then take it to the client. Yeah, so just taking that extra step.
What could you give a piece of advice to somebody who's just like us, like just like a just a person that maybe is trying to like grow a brand on LinkedIn or social media in general, but maybe like LinkedIn more specifically because I think it's can be slightly
Mm,
different in some ways, but like they don't have the committee to sort of ask and like run it by and um, you know how do you figure out the line between sharing too much and being too
yeah.
personal and like creating content for content's sake and focusing on what people actually like or need to hear? What are I know that that's a huge strategy, but like, what would be just like a quick bit of advice
I'm
that you could
gonna
give on that?
frame this in a scenario because I've actually done some like one-on-one coaching with freelance creatives. That's actually a passion of mine too, is to take
Okay.
freelance creatives and help them think operationally about their business. And there's this problem of like, I just don't want to be making extra stuff. I'm already working so hard on how I'm delivering to my clients, but I know I also have to do the marketing for my own business too. Like, how can I balance that? And it is taking that extra time to understand your audience and meeting them where they're at. So we actually work,
Hmm.
them and I work together to um, who is your target audience? What are their challenges? How can you speak into that? And it's just foundational audience strategy. I know if you don't have a team or you don't have like a partner to work with, I think it's even going to your customers, gathering some information from them, like how did you find me? Like what did you get from that? Whatever creative field you're in, you can take a moment to just gather information, even if it's in a conversation, and note it. Like, be like, okay, like if that's how
Yeah.
you found me, and other people could find me that way, then maybe I should spend more time there. It's getting really to the foundation of that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. I didn't know about your consulting, your
Yeah,
coaching
it's
there.
more
That's really
just for
cool.
fun. I don't monetize it.
Yeah.
I just happen to have a lot of freelance friends, so I'm like, let's just
Yeah.
make this a regular conversation.
No, I love that because and that's something that all creatives need. They need some of that operational like framework mindedness and to know that like having some sort of structure is not bad. Like you can be as creative as you want to be within
Yeah,
like this lane and the output is always a lot better and it's always a lot more valuable and yeah. So
yeah.
I think that's awesome. uh I feel like I would like to do something like that too, but maybe I can do it through this. You just gave a lot of good advice, so this episode is actually, I'm just going to point next time somebody asks for help, I'm just going to point them
Oh,
to
great.
this. Be like,
I'll
this
do
is
the
the
same.
episode
I'll
I
just
go
be like, I've already
to.
talked about this on.
Yeah, I already covered it. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being here. I know that you're super busy, and now I know you're even busier because you just talked about how you're doing, just coaching for fun on the side. So I do appreciate you having just giving me the time to be able to come here and talk openly.
Yeah, of course.
If where could anybody come find you if they want to know more about you or more about
Yeah,
with?
well, you can follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me. I would love to hear from you. It's the linkedin.com. You know how it goes, but my handle you can find me at is Jessica Jackson Tate. And then our company LinkedIn, if you were to follow the same domain, it's with agency. And yeah, definitely follow us there. I feel like we're getting even more content out about us. The saying where
Yeah,
the whatever it is about the person who shines people's shoes has like the ugliest shoes, whatever that is, we all talk
it's
about
like
it.
the cobbler's children don't have
Yeah, something
shoes.
like that.
Is that it?
We're really being
Yeah.
intentional about the content that we're putting out right now, so definitely follow us there. But yeah, we're having a good time. And thank you for letting me be here. This is a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next
Bye.
week.